everybody, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Katie, otherwise known as the Vintage Academic. I'm a transfer student at UC Berkeley where I study anthropology and archaeology, and I'm also the head of the transfer admissions office over at Accepted Consulting, which is a small community college transfer and graduate school admissions consulting firm where I help students get into their dream universities as a transfer consultant. And in today's video, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. We are going to talk about my last minute, most important advice for applying to the UCs. I do not know who needs to hear this, but the deadline for the UC application is literally just around the corner at the time that I am posting this video. So if you haven't started your application yet, you would be in the right place. Anything that I say in this video will of course be applicable to the UC application process at any point in time, whether you're 6 months from the deadline or 6 days from the deadline. The point of this video is to help guide you quickly and effectively to help you get those applications submitted sooner rather than later. So I'm going to start off with my tips and also some common mistakes about the actual application itself, and then the second half of the video will focus on my formula for writing an amazing personal insight question, which are the UC's version of the essays. So make sure you stay tuned throughout the entire video because there are different parts that pertain to different aspects of the application. Alright, let's get started. Step 1. Start with the easiest stuff and get it out of the way right now. Like, pause this video, go open your application. If you haven't started an application yet, go create an account and just start filling out all of that background information that you don't have to think that hard about. Fill in your demographic information, your background information, your course history, literally anything that doesn't take the critical thinking skills that you're going to need for the essays. Just go and get it out of the way right now. If you need some more in-depth information about what goes in each section, go ahead and click the card up here or check the description below for a video where I break down the entire UC application, like section by section. Step number 2 is to use the additional comments when it's applicable. The additional comment section is a part of the UC application where you have space to write about and address anything that hasn't already been addressed in other aspects of your application, such as your essays. Things like bad grades, making sure that they take academic renewal into account, which is what I used my additional comments for, explaining why you might have missed a couple of semesters if you're a transfer student, especially if that reason involves family struggles or illness. Anything that you have not talked about in your essays that is important for the UCs to know when considering your application should go in the additional comment section. Step 3, apply to as many of the UCs as you can, especially if you qualify for the fee waiver, which gives you free submission of your application for up to 4 campuses, because otherwise it's either $75 or $70, I don't remember, per campus, but the fee waiver gives you up to 4 campuses for free. Applying to as many of the UCs as you can will indeed increase your chances of getting into a school if you're worried about that, and I think it's a really smart move to take advantage of the fact that you only have to write one application to apply to up to 9 schools. So you can theoretically apply for 9 different UCs with the effort of one application, so definitely cast your net wide when you're using the UC application. Step number 4 is to submit your application a few days before the deadline, at least one. Now I know we're getting super close to the deadline of the UC application, but the reason why I say this is because there could possibly be some kind of maybe a rush to the website to get applications submitted before the deadline, or just any kind of technical difficulties that might prevent you from submitting your application on time. By submitting your application just a couple of days early, like I said, at the very least 1 day early, you're going to ensure that it goes through, and if there are any technical difficulties that arise, you have the time to deal with them before the application deadline closes. This does not mean that the UCs care about the date in which you submitted your application. They do not take that into account. It doesn't matter whether you submit it November 1st or November 30th. I just think it's a smart move to give yourself a little bit of buffer space in case you forget something, in case something goes wrong. You get the idea. Now, those are the steps that I think you should follow when submitting your UC application. But before we move on to the essay part of the video, I think we need to talk about some common mistakes people make on the UC application and how to avoid them. The first one has to do with the activities and awards section. Do not fill up all 20 spaces of the activities and awards section just to fill it up. You should be selecting things that are meaningful to you and highlight some kind of desirable skill like leadership, dedication, commitment, and continued participation. The example that I like to use is baking. If you're somebody who casually bakes on the weekends and maybe you sometimes give cookies to your friends and it's just something you do in your free time as a hobby, that's not really something I'd put in the activities and awards section. But if baking is your entire life, you want to get a degree in food sciences, and you spend all of your free time baking, you run a YouTube channel or a blog and you write your own recipes about baking, that is definitely something that I would add to your extracurriculars, your activities and awards section. So make sure that you're keeping in mind the things that are actually significant to you, that you've done for a long time, that you've put a lot of time and effort into. Again, for more detailed information on what to put in the activities and awards section, go ahead and check out the videos that I've made previously that talk all about that particular section. The second mistake that I see people doing is using the additional comments section to write another essay. The additional comments section should be used strictly for explaining something that hasn't already been addressed somewhere else in your application. If there is something important enough to you that you feel like you could fill up the entire additional comments section by talking about it, then you might consider using that as a topic for one of your essays or the PIQs. But it is not the place for an essay, and if you do write an essay in there, it's going to reflect badly on your application because you can't follow directions. The third thing to avoid is lying about your grades on your application. Please do not do this. When you've gotten into a UC, when they've extended you an offer of admission, and then you've decided to accept that space and you enroll in that UC, your self-reported grades that you put on your application are verified by the submission of your transcripts from your community college or high school. So make sure everything you're putting in your academic history is truthful and honest to the best of your knowledge. Okay, so I think that's all I can really say about the application itself. So now let's move on to the PIQs, the personal insight questions, which again are the UC's version of the college essay. These tips and this formula are going to be vital for anybody who is writing their essay, and it is especially going to be really helpful if you're writing your essay last minute, so make sure you are listening carefully. The first part of your essay needs to be a hook or an attention grabber, and this should ideally be related to a personal experience or anecdote that you have been through personally. Try to write something creative that actually grabs the reader's attention and makes them want to read more. Remember, these people are reading hundreds of applications a day, so there has to be something interesting about your essay, about the way you deliver your information, that keeps their attention in order for it to stand out. This should also be something that is within the first 2 sentences of your essay. Make sure you're dropping the reader just right into the action. Too much time for build-up and background and explanation is going to lose the reader's attention, it's going to be boring. So make sure you're just like right off the bat starting off at the exciting aha realization anecdote moment of your story. The second part of your UC essay is narrative. Now, narrative means telling a story. It means showing the UCs who you are and not explaining who you are. Try to develop a narrative through the vehicle of the personal anecdote that you used as your attention grabber to highlight different aspects of your personality. Try to use as much descriptive language as you can that kind of walks the reader through what your thought processes are, how you respond to certain situations, what makes you tick, the parts of your personality that you value, your skills and your talents, and how you've grown both as an individual and a student. Each essay is 350 words worth of space for you to contextualize your application, so try your best to use that space to actually show the UCs who you are rather than listing off a bunch of things that you think theoretically make you a good student. The third component of a good UC PIQ is some kind of connection to your academics. What about this personal experience, what about your skills, your creativity, your leadership relates to academics? I mean, this is a college essay after all, so how can you take the things that you've learned and the ways that you've grown and apply them to your academics? And also sometimes it's smart to go even further than your academics and talk about like pursuing a career or something and how the UCs are going to help you grow into a person who can become that type of career. The fourth component to a good UC PIQ is reflection. Reflection kind of goes hand in hand with all of the other components that I've talked about already, but it is definitely important enough to mention it again. In your essays, you definitely need to show that you are capable of reflecting on past experiences in order to grow, in order to learn skills and apply them to new situations. So reflect on these things and show the UCs how you're going to be able to apply them to your academics and beyond. The last thing that I need to say about UC PIQs is please be yourself. Make sure that every single word, every single sentence, every single phrase that you use just oozes you and your personality. I want your essays to sound like nobody else could have written them, that this is uniquely you. Now, this doesn't mean that everything that you write about has to be a unique topic, but it does have to come from a unique perspective, which is your perspective. So even if you're writing about a quote-unquote common topic, if you can approach it from your own personal perspective, if you have some kind of new take on it, really apply your personality, your perspective to these essays. Make sure you're using your own words, your own ideas, your own voice, so that way what you write actually sounds like you. I would also say that I think this means limiting the number of people who actually edit your essays as well. By limiting the number of people who edit your essays, you are ensuring that you're not getting it muddled with other people's opinions and voices and words. So I would suggest around 3 people, maybe a family member or a good friend, a professor, and a consultant like me. Just when you're in the brainstorming process, think about how you can really convey to the UCs who you are as a person and how you're going to can reflect that in your writing. I mean, as far as they know, you're just a name and a bunch of numbers on a piece of paper. So what is it that you're going to do that convinces the application reader that you are a unique individual who's a good candidate for their school? And there you have it. Those are the things that I consider to be the most important when trying to approach the UC application quickly and effectively, as well as writing good UC essays. To summarize really quickly, number one, get to your application as soon as possible. Just sit down, open it up, and fill out all the information. Make sure you're avoiding common mistakes on your application, your activities and awards section, the additional comments, and your personal insight questions. And lastly, when it comes to your essays, make sure you are painting a very full picture of who you are and utilizing the space that's given to you to actually contextualize your application. You have 350 words in the 4 of the different prompts, so make sure that you're writing as much as you can fit in there. If you are just starting the UC application, hopefully this video is a good jumping off point for you. And even if you've already filled out the application and you're just working on your essays, these tips are still helpful and applicable for when you go to review your essays before you submit them. So with that, I will say good luck on your applications. I can't wait to see where everybody gets in. Go ahead and leave me a comment. Let me know if this video was helpful. Don't forget to subscribe for more UC Berkeley vintage college application, archaeology related content, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!